Hello. Welcome to the Self-Help Hangover podcast. I wanted to start by saying that me and my dad were guests on a podcast called The Wholeness Network. They are super awesome and we loved being on their podcast. So if you want to hear more from us, go check out their podcast. And their Instagram is, sorry, I should have it pulled up, but it is The Wholeness Network. Let me look up the exact name. Yeah, so it's just The Wholeness Network, no spaces, no symbols or anything. So yeah, go give them a follow and go listen to our episode if you're interested.
Yeah, they ask us why. I mean, first of all, it was really generous of them to have us on there because our podcast is, they self-described as kind of a woo-woo podcast.
Yeah.
And I feel like one of the things that we're trying to do is balance some of the woo-woo out with some criticism or just like critical analysis.
Yeah. We're extremely critical.
I don't think we're extremely critical, Megan. Do you think we're too critical?
No, I don't, but I just feel like I just hope that people still like us after listening to us. I don't think we're that critical. I don't.
I mean, my goal is not to be overly critical, and maybe, as I've said a few times, maybe is to self-confront some of my cynicism.
Yeah.
But it's more to redeem some of the good parts of, or just bring into current contexts things that I think are good in what we're analyzing, and also point out things that I think might not be great.
No, yeah. I don't think, I think we're the perfect amount of critical.
Oh, nice. No, but it is easy to, like, I think we can get self-conscious about that when people have, and myself included, derived so much, like, I would have thought that Think and Grow Rich was like gospel as a young adult. And then I learned about that it was built on shaky foundations, that maybe Napoleon Hill had kind of a past full of questionable enterprises, and so we are just reviewing it with that in mind, and like we've said in some of the early episodes, Utah, where we live, is particularly susceptible to affinity fraud. People feel like they can trust, that people are very trusting.
Yeah.
And particularly of people in their community, at church or wherever. And so it pays, or it's useful, it's a good skill, I think, to be able to analyze and not just uncritically embrace opportunities, or, there's so many questionable things out there. It's just good to be analytical.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
In fact, one of the things that I might want to do in one of our, as we wrap up, by the way, did we talk about what podcast this is? Yeah, you did at the beginning. So, yeah. Okay, good. Is to, well, first of all, we'd love to do kind of a wrap-up episode on this book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. If you have thoughts, questions about the book, about Napoleon Hill's history, maybe we can research those a little bit, or about your own quest for success, how it relates to what we've been talking about, go ahead and mention those in comments on our Instagram posts, or direct message the Self-Help Hangover Instagram account. Maegan will read that. We'll discuss those together. And if it's a topic that we can discuss in our wrap-up episode, we'll do that. So please don't be shy about sliding into our DMs.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, one of my podcasts that I listen to quite a bit, which may be overly critical for a lot of our listeners, I would say, is the Decoding the Gurus. One of the things they have on the Decoding the Gurus podcast is a gurometer. A gurometer is basically they rate or they kind of grade their subjects on the scale of a bunch of different things to determine what their final guru scale or their guru score is.
Wait, that's kind of cool.
So it's things like anti-establishment, Cassandra complex, conspiracy mongering, cultishness, galaxy brainness, grievance mongering, profiteering, pseudo-profound bullcrap. I'm editing that. Revolutionary theories and self-aggrandizement. Now, those things aren't necessarily bad, and maybe, being a guru may not be horrible. It may not be a bad thing. Might be good. You might be blessing a lot of people's lives. But I think as we listen to, study, or are just influenced, or our loved ones are influenced by these kind of guru voices, it helps to be able to take a bird's eye view and say, this person is using the Cassandra complex in their logic, or they are in their rhetoric. They are being anti-establishment in this way. So that we can at least recognize the devices that are being employed by those gurus.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think? Should we
Maybe.
Should we gurometer to this guy?
Maybe.
I think it'd be a fun exercise.
That would be fun.
And we would certainly just give all credit to the gurometer or Decoding the Gurus
podcast
hosts for that tool of measurement.
But all that to say, go listen to our episode on the Wholeness Network. They are so great, and were so kind to have us on, and we talk a lot about our podcast and what kind of just about ourselves. So it was really fun to be on there.
Yes, thank you to the Wholeness Network for bringing us on as guests.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything else we need to cover before we jump into? I think we're going to combine chapters 13 and 14 in this episode.
Yeah.
Rate, review, subscribe if you are so inclined. We might start, if people start reviewing, we could read the reviews on our
We could
following
read the
episodes.
reviews. Yeah.
Good or bad, hopefully not bad.
I know.
But
I'm so scared of getting a bad review. I listened to this podcast, the House Guest podcast, and she talks about how sometimes she gets bad reviews and she just cannot stand reading them.
I don't love that we live in a society that needs to review everything. Or even that it's a stepping stone to to growth, right?
Yeah.
The idea that you have to submit yourself to
being
rated
is
as a stepping stone
scary.
to growth. No. It doesn't seem very healthy to me.
The worst is Reddit, because people are so honest on there because it's anonymous. Is
Reddit all anonymous?
Yeah, it's anonymous.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's so scary. I'm my worst fear is seeing my name on Reddit. Although I'm not famous enough to be on Reddit, but maybe one day I will be on Reddit, and that's my worst fear.
That's okay. It's kind of I don't want to minimize your fear because I don't love it either, but it reminds me of artwork popping up in Goodwill or Desert DI.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, here's
I've never thought about that.
here's one of my images that somebody
Someone
tossed.
gave to DI.
Yeah.
No, that's actually, I could see that. That's scary.
I've been doing it long enough that I think that kind of thing is starting to happen.
Oh.
Not originals, but just like,
Yeah.
I'm sick of this print.
No, that's scary.
That's okay.
Scary thought. But
okay, so the chapter 13 is the brain. The brain. A broadcasting and receiving station for thought. So immediately we see that Napoleon Hill conceives of the brain like a radio tower. And that we talked in the last episodes about the vibrating at a higher frequency.
yeah.
Like geniuses, their brains are vibrating at a higher frequency according to Napoleon Hill. And that through emotions we can increase the vibration of thought. And operation of your, I'm going to quote here, operation of your mental broadcasting station is a comparatively simple procedure. You have but 3 principles to bear in mind and to apply when you wish to use your broadcasting station: the subconscious mind, creative imagination, and autosuggestion. The stimuli through which you put these 3 principles into action have been described. The procedure begins with desire. So we desire something, and then we program our mind, right, by using autosuggestion, our creative imagination, and our subconscious mind as tools. Any thoughts about that?
Not really. I feel like it's kind of similar to what we've talked about before. And like I've said, I do like the idea of autosuggestion and like using the brain to manifest your dreams into reality.
Okay. He says the greatest forces are intangible. So again, I think he's thinking about the unseen world. And as somebody who grew up religious, right, and loves, for me, angels, for example, angels are messengers and like guardians, and they are unseen spirits that help us. They are God's servants or whatever,
Yeah.
right? As I've gotten older and I've gotten more cynical. I've gotten more just maybe even more material in the sense that I believe in the scientific method and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That in many ways, though, those have become more symbolic to me or metaphorical to me. But that's a big wrestle here, and probably one of the reasons I wanted to revisit this book is just to reconsider the metaphysical, to reconsider the mystery. And so he's couching all of this kind of mysterious stuff in science terms. That, according to him, thoughts are vibrations, that the the brain vibrates at a certain frequency, and the higher frequencies are genius and tap into infinite intelligence. And I just want to reiterate that I'm still skeptical about all of that. But also, I do love a life that considers mystery, and I think the conceptualization or the visualization of of a universe helping you out
Yeah.
can bring you courage and strength.
Oh, I love that idea of the universe wanting to help you and being on your side. I heard this analogy that I liked that I think about sometimes, that it's like when you get a dog or a cat and you just love them so much and you just want to give them everything in the world. That's like how the universe is about you. And I know there's no scientific basis behind that, but I just love that idea. I like to think about it sometimes, that like the universe wants to give me things and wants the best for me and just wants me to have everything that I need and want.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that, so there's entropy in the universe, and we can see that in our house as our house breaks down,
Yeah.
as our driveway sloughs off a bunch of cement every winter,
Yeah.
and it's going to be need to be replaced at some point. So things fall apart.
Yeah.
But at the same time, things build. Things create. Like, it is a total miracle that we are conscious beings,
Yeah.
and that we
Absolutely.
have these physical bodies that function, and that there are so many thousands and millions of species
Yeah.
that do the same thing, right? Like, all of that is miraculous and, to me, frankly, magical.
Yeah.
And not to say that it's not all science, because we can explain these things with science, but also the idea that things are organized instead of just falling apart.
Yeah. It really is miraculous.
Yeah, and so to visualize it as thought, the frequency of thought that's a driving force in this. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know, but I think it's a useful conceptualization if it doesn't end up being strictly scientific.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I guess that's where I come down on it.
No, yeah,
Any
that
thoughts
makes
about
sense.
that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like I like the idea of I like the idea of like just that kind of concept that things can be magical or maybe not necessarily don't have to be explained. And I think there are components of my life that feel magical. But
Yeah.
maybe that's just me romanticizing life.
I mean, and that's part of, I think, the crux of it too, is meaning. Like, can we infuse meaning into our lives? Where do we derive that meaning? And I think part of the trick that a project that I'm interested in is deriving meaning that isn't harmful to other people.
Yeah.
And throughout history, we see that meaning has been developed, or so many systems of meaning in various religions. And how can we, and then holding on to those meanings for too long and not adapting has caused a lot of harm,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
right now, for so long, a big thing that's been on my mind is racism, bigotry, the way that LGBTQ people have been treated, etc. in my own religion. And a project that I'm interested in is trying to make it a better place for everyone.
Mm.
And so there are so many different people with different beliefs and desires that it may never be, and won't ever be, probably a perfect place or even a positive place for everyone. But I think it's worth putting the effort into improving.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's, I don't know, maybe I went way off track on a tangent.
No, it applies.
But I think what he's saying here too is that there is an intangible energy in like the soil that grows food, like in a seed that is destined to grow into a large plant. These are creative energies that exist and that we benefit from, and we don't even see them.
Yeah.
Did you know that there are 86 billion nerve cells in the human brain?
I didn't know that, but
At least that's what AI says.
I probably should know it because I took neuroscience a few semesters ago and it was super interesting, but so I probably learned about that at some point.
Back when this book was written, Napoleon Hill wrote, "It has been determined that there are from 10 billion to 14 billion nerve cells in the human cerebral cortex." But yeah, current estimates 86 billion nerve cells in a human brain, and that blows my mind. Like
It's so
literally,
crazy.
but also figuratively. That how is there even time for that many cells to split and
No, it's
develop and
crazy. No, yeah, did I tell you about what's it called? Oh no. No, what's it called? It's like no, dang it. I can't remember.
we can wait. We'll just sit here and wait until Megan remembers. You guys be patient out there. She's
This might
thinking.
take a few minutes. No. Well, we can move on. But
Okay, if it comes to you, jump back in.
okay.
So Napoleon Hill writes, quote, "It is inconceivable that such a network of intricate machinery should be," he's talking about the brain, "should be in existence for the sole purpose of carrying on the physical functions incidental to growth and maintenance of the physical body." So he's saying the brain isn't just to run our bodies, right? Is it not likely that the same system which gives billions of brain cells the media for communication one with another provides also the means of communication with other intangible forces? In other words, the brain is so complex, so amazing. Isn't it likely that it's doing some unseen communicating beyond just the obvious communicating and running our bodies, right?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting thought for sure. And then he starts talking about telepathy and clairvoyance.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? I mean, how would you even define what's your thought
Telepathy.
about telepathy and clairvoyance?
So I mean, telepathy is basically like when you're communicating through like your mind, right, with other people.
Okay. What's clairvoyance?
Clairvoyance isn't that's like when you're talking to like spiritual or like you're talking communicating with like isn't that like when you're talking to like spirits?
We might as well just look up these definitions. Here's one: telepathy, the supposed communication of thoughts or ideas by means other than the known senses. So, telepathy, direct transference of thought from one person to another without using the usual sensory channels. Okay, let's look up clairvoyance. Clairvoyance means the supposed faculty of perceiving things or events in the future
Oh yeah, seeing like
or
future.
beyond normal sensory contact. So, yeah, so that's kind of like being a prophet or something,
Yeah,
right?
like seeing the future. I'm not gonna lie, I've had so many dreams that have come true in like some sense, like in the future.
Like dreams, just while you're sleeping
Like, yeah,
dreams?
like I had a dream and then some aspect of that dream came true.
Do you want to talk about that? Or
Well,
give us an example?
it's
Or is
like
that too
so
personal?
like no, it's not personal. And it's like such random things too. Like it's always like random things. I'm trying to think
You
of
know
an
how I have to
example.
relate this to religion, right? So, yeah, you keep talking. I got to look this up. This
No, you're
quote by
good.
Joseph Smith.
I just like I'm trying to think of an example and I'm so embarrassed because I cannot think of one right now, but I've had like so many things like where I'll like dream about something happening to someone and then the next day I'll find out that actually happened to someone in my life. And it just happened like a few different times. It's so weird.
Okay, so are you going to tell us an example? Or
I can think of one example, but it's like kind of dark, so I feel like maybe I shouldn't talk about it or we'll need like a like trigger warning or something.
whoa, this just took an unexpected
I
turn.
know. It was like it involved like assault.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like it's like I dreamed that like happened to someone and then like the next day I found out that had happened to someone I knew and I was just like
When it was the person that you dreamed about?
no it wasn't, but
Oh,
it was like I dreamed about like someone random that I didn't know. It's just like that's like the one example that I remember like very clearly because it was just so like shocking or something. But
here's an interesting quote by Joseph Smith, and I'm not sure where it's from. Lectures on Faith, maybe. I don't know. You guys can find the source. But he says, a person may profit by noticing the first intimation of the spirit of revelation. For instance, when you feel pure intelligence flowing unto you, it may give you sudden strokes of ideas that by noticing it, you may find it fulfilled the same day or soon.
wow, yeah. So
What,
that
what do you
yeah,
think?
that's I mean I feel inclined to disagree with Joseph Smith, but I kind of like get what he's saying or something. Like I just feel like that happens sometimes. And I don't think obviously that all my dreams predict the future, but I just feel like it has happened to me before and it's really weird. Like it just kind of is just so interesting to me that that's happened before.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so clairvoyance and telepathy. That is something that Napoleon Hill is suggesting the brain has capacity for. And that's about all I can say about it. Like, I don't. Have I experienced it myself? I don't know. I mean, I have felt certain things. Like, when I, for example, I would call it, as a religious person, like God talking to me or the spirit. I guess it could be like a guardian, an ancestor or something talking to me. Particularly, like I remember when I was met your mom for the first time, and we were starting to go on dates and stuff, and we had this really awkward interaction at one point, and I was like, I don't really want to deal with this, you know. I mean, you know how dating is. You're like,
Yeah.
I don't think this is gonna work out, and I honestly heard a voice. Okay, I don't hear voices very often. But I heard a voice in my head. I'm trying to think, it was it audible? I don't know. But a very distinct voice said, "You better move forward with this girl, Kirk."
Really?
Yes.
I don't think I've ever heard that story.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
That's one example I've had, just a few examples like that. But What was that? I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, my church upbringing would say that's the spirit talking to you.
Yeah.
What my scientific brain say, I don't know. My subconscious talking to myself, telling me not to give up. I don't know, but do I need to know? I don't know. Maybe I do, but I also think it's okay to have mystery.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And there's a lot that we can't explain or that we haven't explained. I don't mean to be an apologist for anything, but I do think that meaning and mystery are an important part of life for most of us.
Yeah.
This ad is for art collectors and for people who have a blank space on their wall just begging for a great work of art. Check out our monthly community art shows at JKR Gallery. Come to our opening receptions to see the artwork in person on the first Friday evening of each month. Or browse the collections online at jkrgallery.com. Have pity on your empty wall and give it the artwork it craves.
Oh yeah, so I was gonna say, so I just looked it up because I knew like the thing, but what I was gonna say about the brain is, did I tell you about like it's called, I couldn't remember the name, but it's called Hebb's Law, but it's goes with the phrase neurons that fire together wire together. And it's like, I just really like that idea because it's like if you are, it especially applies with habits. So if you're doing something regularly, your neurons are firing to do that thing and your brain physically changes and wires together and makes that into a habit, like a part of who you are. So that's just super interesting to me because it's like the things we do literally change our brain and how it is, which is so crazy to me that the brain does that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So Heb?
Hebbian's, it's short for Hebbian's law. Yeah, and it's a fundamental law of neuroscience. And I'm trying to remember who the deal is, what the deal is with Hebb, but I think he was, I learned about him forever ago. But
I mean, neurons that fire together are like if you do a particular thing, it sparks specific cells. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, it's like if you're doing something that like pathway is stimulated and then like when those neurons are firing, they like wire together into that certain pathway, and that like creates a habit or like a behavioral pattern.
It's so wild.
It's so crazy.
It's still like beyond my ability to understand.
I know,
that.
me too. It's just so crazy to think about. But I like thinking about it because it's so cool that like if we do things, it's physically changing our brain. So it's really interesting to think about.
Well, that's the brain. Do you have anything else you want to say about chapter 13 before we move on to chapter 14?
No, I don't think so.
The Sixth Sense.
The Sixth Sense.
Did you watch the movie?
I did watch the movie. Don't talk about this twist at the end.
Megan knows I'm prone to give spoilers. Okay.
Did we already talk about that with the Good Place?
It seems like we have talked about that, but I don't know. You can remind me what I said. I don't know.
So I don't know if you guys have watched The Good Place, but maybe I shouldn't say this because it's a spoiler. But my dad told
skip ahead if you don't want to hear what happens.
Yeah, skip ahead right now. But my dad told my brother Brian that to watch The Good Place, and he described it as a show where people are in hell, but they think they're in heaven. And that's how he described it by telling him the whole twist.
That's right. Because when do they find out that they're not in heaven?
It's like after the whole first season.
Yeah, it's
like the end of the first season. And that's like a big twist in the plot. So.
Well, okay, the sixth sense, we won't talk about that. We won't spoil that one for you. But what is a sixth sense?
What is a sixth sense?
Yeah, what is it?
Just, there's obviously the five senses, and then the sixth sense is is a little more intuitive, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
There's
that
different
sounds right to me. He describes it in the book as a medium of contact between the finite mind of people and infinite intelligence.
Yeah. It's like the third eye, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, in practical terms, speaking of third eye, man, what's the deal with the Duolingo icon?
Oh,
There,
yeah. That was weird.
is
I
it
don't
because
think.
I've skipped a day and they're like, this third eye sees that you didn't do
See, so you saw.
Duolingo
No,
today?
I skipped the last 2 days. I have freezes. So I
I
needed to do
know
it
I did
today.
way too many freezes this month. Okay, he says that through the aid of the sixth sense, you'll be warned of impending dangers in time to avoid them, and notified of opportunities in time to embrace them, and that there is a guardian angel that comes to your aid to do your bidding, who will open to you at all times the door to the temple of wisdom.
So this reminds me so much of the Holy Ghost from LDS.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, when in the Mormon church, they teach you always that the Holy Ghost is with you and will tell you if things are right or wrong. And basically, you have to listen to that voice that will warn you about danger or tell you if something is good. So that's what that reminds me of. But just from my perspective, I would say it's just intuition, like listening to your own intuition. That's what it sounds like to me.
Okay. So is for you, would the sixth sense be just being in tune with your own intuition, or does that, or is there like a connection to the larger universe that the sixth sense
Um,
embodies?
Honestly, I like to think that it does have to do with the larger universe as a whole. Like I like to think that there's like a higher power that's talking to me and that gives me like divine intuition sometimes. I like to believe that. And I don't really have any solid beliefs about that. Like, I don't have anything that I believe for sure. But I do like to think that there's a higher power that helps me like get intuitive ideas or input.
Okay, so in other words, let me just restate that. So the sixth sense for you would be your own tuition, which is in connection with or maybe given to you by the
Yeah,
universe.
yeah, that is how I like to think about it. Yeah.
Okay.
How do you think about it?
Um, I haven't thought about it much lately. I mean, I do believe in intuition, and I think of my artwork a lot of times as prayer, or yeah, I mean, just kind of hope for help beyond my own ability to function in this world.
Yeah.
So, but I haven't really exercised something that I would consider a sixth sense in recent years at all, other than just kind of going with my gut on a lot of things.
Yeah, I totally get that.
I could, exercise it and try to develop it and conceptualize it differently. Perhaps maybe that this book will inspire me to do that, but I haven't really. But I did tell you about the voice that I heard, right?
Yeah.
So let me just read this paragraph here. Quote, "The author is not a believer in nor an advocate of miracles, for the reason that he has enough knowledge of nature to understand that nature never deviates from her established laws. Some of her laws are so incomprehensible that they produce what appears to be miracles. The sixth sense comes as near to being a miracle as anything I have ever experienced, and it appears so only because I do not understand the method by which this principle is operated." I think this is kind of a good example of the project of trying to make science and the metaphysical work together.
Yeah.
I think that was a project of Mormonism from the beginning, and also the more, the modern era in general. Like, how are we going to justify all of our beliefs in the metaphysical spirits, even a lot of superstitions, and take them into this new scientific era and make it all be okay in our brains.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's like I was just learning about cognitive dissonance.
yeah,
I didn't know what that was before, but yeah, it's like when two things exist in your brain that just don't like make sense together, and it's like almost like hurts your brain because it's like you can't like get them to fit together or something, or it's like two things that contradict each other that are hard for your brain to conceptualize.
yeah, yeah. So the way that it's done, or the way that it has been done, and I'm not. I mean, I agree with this idea, this approach, is to say that there's so much of nature, the laws of nature, that we don't understand yet, right? Like, science is always evolving. And when we completely understand science and religion, or the magic of the universe, that it will all come together in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because miracles happen through scientific processes. So they're not actually miracles, but they are to our eyes because we don't understand those processes.
Yeah.
What do you think about those kinds of
Yeah, I agree
ideas?
with you. Yeah, I don't feel like personally the need to understand everything scientifically. And maybe that's like a flaw of mine. But I do like, maybe that's something that you and I are a little bit different on. But I feel like I'm a little bit more like open to like just miracles happening like for no reason or something. I don't know. Do you think I'm wrong about that?
No, I'll take you at your word. No, I think that, yeah, and I think you are open to a lot of things, yeah. And that's beautiful. I don't know if age will change that,
Maybe
or
it
if
might.
it could, people change. I've changed, but
Yeah.
there is a beauty in just experiencing the mystery,
Yeah,
you
for
know.
sure. Yeah.
Now he talks about. Oh, this is so interesting to me. Okay, so he started with hero worship, right? He's like, I think Lincoln is amazing. I think Napoleon is mind blowing, whatever.
Yeah.
But he kind of wanted to get past hero worship, and so he did that by starting to imitate some of his heroes, to incorporate some of those qualities that he loved.
Yeah.
And then, after imitating them for a while, he developed an imaginary council
Oh, yeah.
with these
Yeah.
people in it. Tell us what you remember about
So,
this.
yeah, so basically it's like in his imagination he's at like a table with all of these people that he looks up to, and like they're like counseling him on things. It's almost like a mastermind group in his head of with like people that he looks up to.
Yeah, exactly. And he eventually became the chairman of this group.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
he's conducting a meeting, and Lincoln's there, and Napoleon's there, and Thomas Edison's there, and, just a bunch of people. And he says, quote, I had a very definite purpose in indulging my imagination through these nightly meetings. My purpose was to rebuild my own character so that it would represent a composite of the characters of my imaginary counselors. Realizing as I did early in life that I had to overcome the handicap of birth in an environment of ignorance and superstition, I deliberately assigned myself the task of voluntary rebirth through the method here described.
Okay, yeah.
What do you think about that?
It's like, I mean, it's like kind of cool, like in a way. I don't know. It's like a little weird, but what do you think
Yeah,
about it?
I'm very fascinated with it.
It's
I
interesting,
think
like
I can relate to this idea, which isn't very, it's not very generous to, our forefathers and mothers to say this.
yeah, just yeah.
But there are things that we want to overcome in terms of
Our upbringing.
upbringing, where we were born, the environment. I think my parents did a great job. I had a lovely childhood, and yet there are things, I see the world differently than they do in some ways.
Yeah.
And how do I rebuild my own character? Is it by inviting Vincent van Gogh to nightly meetings in my kitchen? Maybe. I think about if I were to have a meeting and sit around and ask, like, Anselm Kiefer what to do about my career. He's going to give me different answers, and honestly, I don't actually know what answers he would give me because I
Yeah.
haven't had
'Cause you
close
can't
enough
know.
exposure. But he would give me different answers than my high school art teacher or my dad, or
Yeah.
like, I think it's interesting to think about what some of these people would advise
It is interesting.
me to
Excuse me.
do.
Yeah. No, it is really interesting to think about that.
So he would ask Mr. Carnegie in his meetings about. See, that's one of the things that I'm wondering about. If he was meeting with Carnegie every night in these meetings,
was it in his
was it in his mind that he had the meeting, the original
That
meeting
is so
that
true.
this whole book is based on?
This whole book is based on him meeting with Andrew Carnegie in his mind at these meetings.
Yes, I'm asking myself that question.
That is so interesting.
Because I think it was less, I don't know, maybe it's similar, maybe it's the similar ethics today, but it seems to me that, like, he does mention some of the ethics kind of here, but just, is it the same? If I had nightly meetings and I met with Anselm Kiefer, who's one of my favorite contemporary artists, in these meetings, could I say that Anselm Kiefer sent me on this quest to make great art? Right?
Yeah, could you say that?
I could say that.
But it's very misleading.
Yes, depending on the wording,
Yeah.
it would be more or less truthful. for me to say it.
Yeah.
But it would lead people to believe things, and I'd be happy to let them believe those
Yeah.
things. Right?
So
right?
it's like one of those when he talks about sometimes it's okay to stretch the truth. Napoleon Hill.
Exactly. So he says, these meetings became so realistic that I became fearful of their consequences and discontinued them for several months.
What?
The experiences were so uncanny, I was afraid if I continued them, I would lose sight of the fact that the meetings were purely experiences of my imagination.
So maybe he did think that maybe he was so delusional that about these meetings that he thought they were real.
Some 6 months after I had discontinued the practice, I was awakened one night, or thought I was, when I saw Lincoln standing at my bedside.
Wow. That's so crazy.
That just makes me think of Joseph Smith and
It
Moroni.
does, yeah. It
He
really
said,
does.
sorry, I'll keep reading. He said, the world will soon need your services. It is about to undergo a period of chaos which will cause men and women to lose faith and become panic-stricken. Go ahead with your work and complete your philosophy. That is your mission in life. If you neglect it for any cause whatsoever, you will be reduced to a primal state and be compelled to retrace the cycles through which you have passed during thousands of years. So basically, he's got Lincoln's endorsement, right? Lincoln is saying, this work is so important, you have got to do this.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that I'm concerned about, is blurring the line between reality and
Imagination.
yes, but in a way that also gives you a blank check to push your project forward with disregard to other people.
Oh no, absolutely.
Right?
Because that's been super dangerous in certain situations.
So when we feel like we have what manifest destiny was this call to settle the West, to take over Indian lands, and to kick people off of do just and colonize. And we've colonized in onto the land of the Americas, but also back outward, right? And there's been so many colonizers throughout the history of the world. Now, some of those things may have been felt inevitable for the development of the world, but I would say from a moral perspective, we can be more cautious about manifest destiny, right? We have goals, we have callings, dreams, missions, but also how do we do those in ethical ways, I think is a question we should keep at the forefront. And I'm not saying Napoleon Hill necessarily didn't do this, but I do think that it's easy for those of us who are very entrepreneurial to just kind of march ahead relentlessly without worrying about collateral damage.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does, yeah.
So Lincoln told him that this was so important for him to do, and then he grew his cabinet till it had more than 50 people, including Jesus Christ, St. Paul, Galileo, Copernicus, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, Homer, Voltaire, just so many people. And he does give a caveat a little bit later, which says, he says, lest I be misunderstood, I wish here to state most emphatically that I still regard my cabinet meetings as being purely imaginary. But I feel entitled to suggest that while the members of my cabinet may be purely fictional, and the meetings existent only in my own imagination, they have led me into glorious paths of adventure, rekindled an appreciation of true greatness, encouraged creative endeavor, and emboldened the expression of honest thought. There you have it.
Yeah.
Who would be in your cabinet, Megan?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think. So probably like I'm trying to think of who my biggest inspirations are right now. My favorite podcaster, Cosmic CEO, her name is Kinsey Madsen. She'd definitely be there. Probably like Michelle Obama or something. I'm trying to think about who else I've been like looking up to lately. Wow, that's weird. I feel like usually I have a lot of people that I'm like looking up to, but maybe I haven't as much lately. Who would be on yours?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I should have been prepared with the answer, but I talked
okay.
about Anselm Kiefer. I'd love to
Yeah.
hear more about, how he did what he did. And El Anatsui is an artist that I'd love to learn more about, get some perspective from. And I'm sure there'd be some musicians. Maybe Peter Gabriel. I don't know. Yeah, yeah, it's a good question. Maybe that should be our homework.
That should be, yeah.
Come up with our 10 cabinet members.
Yeah. No, that's a good challenge. Comment your 10 cabinet members under our post when this episode comes out.
Yes, and then let us know how your cabinet meetings go. Well, okay, so we've talked about the brain and the sixth sense. And is there anything else we need to talk about this before we take a break? And we'll come back next week with how to outwit the 6 ghosts of fear.
I actually have something to say. This is like so Joe Rogan vibes, but it's like
Uh-oh.
it's like
We're entering the manosphere right now.
yeah, but have you ever heard of DMT?
DMT. That's
Or
not
like
DBT.
I think it's the same.
D.
I think it's the same as ayahuasca, or is it different? It's different.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like some sort of mind-altering
Yeah.
drug experience.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like supposed to be like acid, but like just like crazy. And apparently people always see these little like jesters when they're on it, and these jesters will like talk to them and stuff. And it's weird.
Oh, so your cabinet's just going to be full of DMT jesters?
Yeah. Just kidding. I would never try it. I would be way too scared.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's too scary.
So it's like more intense than mushrooms?
Yeah. It's way more like, yeah, like it's like you basically see God. From what I've heard.
You don't want to see God, Megan?
It's just like too scary to be that like out of control.
The jesters God? Or do you see
God
surrounded by jesters?
Or you see like, well, what you should do is look up DMT paintings, because people will paint like what they saw, and it's like crazy like Egyptian stuff. But
I don't think it's Egyptian stuff.
or it kind of, or like, I don't know, just look up DMT paintings and
I'll do it.
Tell me what you see. But that's just too out of control.
But if my paintings change, people are going to start blaming you for the tip. You know? If my paintings start getting psychedelic.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
No, I'll just adapt the imagery of it.
Oh, okay.
If I think those jesters are cute or something. All right. Well, thanks for the discussion. And it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Dad, and thank you everyone for listening.